Have you ever felt an unexplainable anger towards someone who brags too much? Or found yourself silently judging others for qualities you secretly admire? Maybe you avoid confrontation but inwardly explode with rage. Maybe you're the kindest person in the room, yet feel drained and resentful when no one notices.
What if I told you these aren't random reactions, but signs of something deeper, something hidden?
Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But what is this unconscious force we keep running from? It's called the shadow self, the part of you you've rejected, denied, or were told was unacceptable. You see, every time you were told as a child, "Stop being selfish. Good kids don't cry. Don't be angry," you pushed that part of yourself down, buried it beneath who you were expected to be, but it didn't disappear. The shadow doesn't vanish when ignored. It grows stronger in the dark. And over time, it shows up in ways you least expect, through irrational reactions, toxic relationships, self-sabotage, or even extreme kindness that leaves you empty inside. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about finally seeing. Because the moment you realize that what irritates you in others is often a mirror of your own denied self, you begin to wake up. You begin to understand why some people trigger you without even trying. You begin to see how your patterns, your guilt, your perfectionism all speak the language of your shadow. So ask yourself, what if the traits you hate in others are the parts of you you've never dared to look at? And what if making peace with them is the key to reclaiming your wholeness? This isn't just psychology, this is a mirror. And maybe, for the first time, it's time to look. To understand the shadow self, we have to start with a hard truth. Not everything inside us is kind, noble, or socially acceptable, and that's okay. Carl Jung defined the shadow as the unconscious part of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with. In simpler words, it's the part of you that contains all the traits you've been taught to hide, suppress, or deny. Think back to childhood. Maybe you were punished for being too loud, or told it was wrong to want attention. Maybe your anger scared your parents, or your sensitivity was mocked. Over time, you learned to bury these traits, not because they were bad, but because they were unwelcome. You built a version of yourself that fit what others expected. You became the responsible one, the quiet one, the peacemaker. But in doing so, you locked away all the parts of you that didn't fit the mold. That locked away part is the shadow. And here's the twist, the shadow never disappears. It doesn't die, it simply waits beneath your surface. The shadow speaks not in words, but in reactions. Tugs when you overreact to criticism, when you envy someone's confidence, when you sabotage good things in your life, when you're inexplicably drawn to people who wound you. These are not coincidences, they are the fingerprints of the shadow. But the shadow isn't evil. It is neutral, a container of everything you've exiled, both dark and light. Inside the shadow lies your buried anger, yes, but also your power, your suppressed jealousy, but also your ambition, your hidden shame, but also your authenticity. Ignoring the shadow keeps you fragmented. It's like driving a car with a blindfold on, believing you're in control while your unconscious is actually steering.
So why does it matter?
Because only by bringing the shadow to light, by naming it, understanding it, and integrating it, can you reclaim your wholeness, not a perfect self, but a real one. Not just the parts that earn applause, but the ones that make you human. In Jung's words, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So, are you ready to meet the parts of yourself you've been taught to forget? The shadow doesn't wear a name tag. It doesn't announce itself when it enters the room. It hides behind your strongest reactions, your secret shame, your quiet envy. If you've ever said, "I don't know why I did that," there's a good chance your shadow was at the wheel. Here are 5 signs your shadow self may be quietly steering your life. 1. You strongly dislike people with traits you secretly desire. Do you judge people who are loud, confident, or ambitious? Ask yourself, could it be envy wrapped in morality? Often we attack in others what we've repressed in ourselves. The shadow projects outward what the ego cannot accept inward. 2. You overreact to small things. A friend forgets to reply. A co-worker gets more praise. Suddenly you feel abandoned or furious. Your reaction seems disproportionate, but to the shadow it makes perfect sense. These overreactions are often echoes of older wounds, the moments we weren't seen, loved, or validated when we needed it most. 3. You always play the good one, but feel quietly resentful. You're generous, forgiving, patient, but deep down, exhausted. You give and give, then feel invisible. This is the shadow of niceness, where being good becomes a mask that hides suppressed needs, anger, and boundaries that were never taught to be honored. 4. You attract relationships that mirror your wounds. Why do you keep falling for people who belittle you, neglect you, or fear your light? The shadow pulls you toward people who reflect your unhealed parts, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants you to see them. What remains unconscious will repeat until it becomes conscious. 5. You harshly judge yourself when no one is watching. You smile in public, but in private you whisper, "You're not enough." You replay mistakes. You self-sabotage when you're close to success. This is the internalized critic, the voice of the shadow that grew from shame, perfectionism, or childhood fear. You think it's just you, but it's the voice of a wound that was never allowed to speak. These signs are not flaws, they are invitations. Each one is a mirror, not to shame you, but to reveal you. Because the shadow isn't your enemy, it's the you that's been waiting to be seen. No one is born ashamed of who they are. A child laughs without permission, cries without guilt, loves without filters. But slowly the world teaches us which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which must be buried. And so the shadow begins. It starts in childhood, often with good intentions. Your parents scolded your anger, not because it was evil, but because they feared what it might become. Your tears were met with, "Stop crying, be strong," not because you were weak, but because vulnerability made them uncomfortable. Praise came only when you were good, quiet, helpful. So you learned the rules of belonging. To be loved, you must be less of who you are. Each time a part of you was shamed, ignored, or punished, it retreated underground. This wasn't a conscious choice, it was survival. The shadow, then, is not made of evil, it's made of fear, pain, and the natural desire to be accepted. It holds the anger you weren't allowed to express, the joy you were told was too much, the dreams that were laughed at, the boundaries you never learned to set. Over time, this pile of rejected parts becomes so large, we forget they were ever ours. We say, "I'm not angry. I'm not selfish. I don't care what people think." But the truth is, we do. We always did. We just learned it wasn't safe to admit. Worse still, society rewards the mask. You become the responsible one, the achiever, the caregiver, the people pleaser. But deep down, there's a silent scream. Who am I really? Carl Jung believed that true healing doesn't come from striving to be more good, but from embracing what we've left in the dark. That the shadow is not our flaw, but our fullness waiting to be reclaimed. To ignore the shadow is to live half a life. To meet it is to begin the journey home, to a self that is whole, messy, complex, and beautifully real. So the next time you feel triggered, hurt, or reactive, pause. Not to judge yourself, but to ask, what part of me is crying out to be seen? Because every wound has a voice, and the shadow is simply where your voice went when the world told you to be quiet. It is a child to hold, a truth to listen to, a mirror that reflects not your weakness but your wholeness, if only you dare to look. So how do we begin the work of healing? Step 1. Notice the trigger. Every time you feel a surge of irritation, envy, or judgment, pause. Not to fix it, not to deny it, but to witness it. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to protect? Because behind every harsh emotion is a soft truth. Step 2. Practice radical honesty with yourself. Write it out. Name the parts you've disowned. I want to be seen. I'm afraid of failing. I feel small around confident people. You are not weak for admitting these things. You are courageous for facing them. Step 3. Meet your shadow with compassion, not shame. You are not broken, you were shaped. Every shadow trait was born from a story, yours. And stories can be rewritten. You can set boundaries without guilt. You can own your ambition without fear. You can allow yourself to be soft, even if the world once punished you for it. Shadow work isn't about perfection, it's about integration, gathering the scattered parts of yourself and bringing them back into the light. As Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries.
And this work is lifelong.
Some days you will slip into old roles. You will judge, react, deny. But even then you are growing, because now you are aware. Awareness is the first form of freedom. So here's the truth most people never hear. The parts of you you've hidden the longest are the parts that hold your deepest gifts. When you stop running from your shadow, you stop running from yourself. And when you finally turn toward it with tenderness, with curiosity, with courage, you don't just meet your darkness, you meet your light. Sometimes the parts of us we fear the most are simply the ones waiting to be loved. Healing doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means remembering who you were before the world told you to hide. If this message spoke to something in you, I invite you to pause, reflect, and share this with someone who might need it too. And if you're ready to meet your shadow with kindness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on this journey inward.